sarcastic. Look, the point is, do we give the bailout money to the bankers, or do we write off all their BS and invest in ourselves? Right. Obviously, your plan is better than their plan, which is total scorched earth. Now, I want to shift gears. We have, I mean, it was all over the news today. They admit global depression now. And again, you said an Obama deception. We were already in a depression 3 years ago. They've lied about it. Where are we going on the current course if the world doesn't listen to the ideas that you've put forward and others have put forward as an alternative? How do you see them? Because we're seeing calls for Obama to step down, to not run again. Where do you see all of this mess going?
Well, I'm aware of an interesting website that's in the process of being put together. It's called Primary Obama Now, and it reflects the fact that the Democratic Party seems to be pretty much brain dead in the sense that they have not yet produced a fairly prominent challenger in the Democratic primaries to Obama. And if people want to take a look at it, it's called Primary Obama Now. The urgent thing is, and even various left liberals themselves, Ralph Nader and some others have said this, there's got to be a primary challenger to Obama to stop him from running wild, because he's been selling out to Wall Street left and right. I mean, you look at...
Well, he's clearly blackmailed. He isn't acting just like a political minion or a fellow traveler. He's acting like a panicked gazelle running into tiger's jaws.
Right, but the model, therefore, is Carter, right? So Obama is going to have a very hard time getting reelected. There are reports that his strategy is based on extreme polarization, right? Including, as you say, race riots and other things.
Well, no, it's come out. They've leaked the memos that their strategy, their gambit, is racial division. My God, this goes back to what he did with his cousin, Odinga, that you wrote about and others wrote about, where he wrote the letter saying, just cause riots if you don't win the election in Kenya.
Right, so this is obviously the path that you don't want to take.
So hold on, but we're almost out of time. How do you neutralize that, Webster? Well,
again, to the extent that there's this mass ferment, you look at that thing in Wisconsin in February. Now we have these marches, right? And these are spreading, right? They're going to be. There's one in Los Angeles. There's one in Boston. There are things like this starting up in many cities.
They're everywhere.
The big question is, what are they going to demand? What are they going to fight for? The New York seems to be turning in on itself, right? They got these people arrested crossing the stupid Brooklyn Bridge. I don't know why they wanted to go to Brooklyn. What's in Brooklyn?
No, let me tell you the answer, Webster. That was staged. Their leaders let them out there. The cops directed them on the bridge to block it so the Soros group would get all the attention.
Right. So and now they're at City Hall protesting that the people got arrested. So again, what is it that you want is what people want to hear. And what you want, it's got to be something that expresses the needs of this entire society to survive. In other words, break the political power of Wall Street, make them pay for the depression, and save the American people their jobs, their homes, and their living standards. And the methods, I think, are pretty much some of the ones that we've said so far.
Well, regardless, Webster, it's time to reverse it. Globalism is death. Our country is falling apart. The world is falling apart. This race to the bottom, these Wall Street people have been too successful. They've destroyed so much of society.
They are. And now, of course, we have to bear in mind there's a conjunctural aspect. The crisis of the European banks is now extreme, right? The news.
That was my final point. Hold on. Let me bring that up to you. Here's a document cam shot, or I can hold this up to the camera right over here if they give me that shot. David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, has come out and said, I'm not going to let England have a referendum on going under the euro. That's this banking governmental extraction fund, this receivership system. He says, I don't care if you want a referendum, 85% or more, depending on the poll. I think we should stay in the euro. And they admit the euro is now this financial dictatorship. And I've heard Bloomberg, I've seen CNBC say it's terrible that democracies in Europe don't want this bailout. We'll just have to bring in a tyranny. I mean, I hear them now openly extolling tyranny. You got the floor. 2 minutes, Webster.
Of course, the trick is that the British are not in the euro. They're working to destroy the euro, right? They want to have the British pound is supposed to be reborn like Frankenstein's monster and walk like Dracula across the world. if you look at the news of the past weekend, it's that Greece doesn't meet the austerity targets because their deficit is growing. And again, that's been the case from Brüning in Germany to Schwarzenegger in California to Papandreou in Greece. Austerity doesn't work. It means the entire program of the Republican Party in the Congress, which is more and more genocidal austerity cuts against the American people, it just doesn't work. Even in its own terms, they say, cut the budget and you'll balance the budget. You won't. You'll get a bigger deficit. So that's what Greece has now rediscovered for the 999th time. Today, the New York market was down 200 and some odd points. But if you look in the middle of that, Bank of America down significantly, I think 8%. Citibank down 8%. So what you're seeing is the second wave of the depression and the beginning of the third wave. The second wave is the European banking crisis, and that's going to roll on. Now, I put up on my Tarpley.net website, I got a bunch of things for the things that the Europeans should not do. They should not do bailouts. But they should try to defend the euro, because if they get broken up, it's like a convoy, right? If you have a wolf pack of zombie banks attacking the euro, as long as they stay together, they have a certain chance of defending.
Well, sure, no. They're breaking up the euro to transfer it into a new pure corporate dictatorship.
Right, to break it up and basically to loot them, because the way it would work is the German mark would be driven up so high that the German export trade, which has been hanging on, would be completely destroyed, and all the other ones would be driven down into the center of the earth, and they would have hyperinflation. So it would basically destroy all of them. What they've got to do is fight the speculators, ban credit default swaps, put in that Wall Street sales tax or Tobin tax, the 1% on financial speculation. They've got to raid the offices of those credit agencies, right? There's one judge in Italy has already done it. They need to basically get those credit agencies, because they're guilty of insider trading. That was written up in the U.S. financial papers a couple of weeks ago, right? That right before the U.S. downgrade, there was a huge amount of insider trading, obviously inspired by the ratings agencies.
Of course, Webster, it's too incredible. You're absolutely right. We're going to talk to you again soon about this. Tarpley.net, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv. Thank you so much for getting people to really think. But I think the final equation tonight is, don't be a useful dupe of George Soros, Al Gore, and the controlled corporate left. Wake up to what's really happening.
And let me congratulate you for the idea of having some activism, right? To do these protests. Do them at the Federal Reserve branches, do them at Bank of America, find the best tactical target, but go there with some demands that will really scare them. Not just that, we want freedom and equality. Yeah, we do, but we've got to have specific ways to make that happen. I do plan to go to Bank of America, where they've been convicted of taking houses they never even had a deed on knowingly. That is actually part of our constellation, and directly the Federal Reserve this upcoming weekend and next week. Webster, thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, that was certainly a spirited and interesting and quite informative discussion. We're going to go to break and come back with our final interview, but I want to just tell you something. I don't spend my time whining and complaining. That 24/7 we deal with attacks here at this InfoWars operation that I have to handle and deal with that I don't talk about. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you being PrisonPlanet.tv subscribers, sharing our text, articles, and video links to everybody. If we don't defeat these people, very soon there's going to be a time when you're not going to be able to probably tune into this show. So please don't take this information for granted. YouTube's trying to push us off where we reach millions and millions a week. Other channels are doing it. That's why we've really revamped and expanded PrisonPlanet.tv, InfoWarsNews.com. We'll get you there as well. If you're not a subscriber and you're watching this out on the web, support alternative, true, populist, grassroots media. Become a subscriber of PrisonPlanet.tv today. We'll be back after this quick break with the incredible calls for authoritarian corruption here in the United States with Dr. Jerome Corsi. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The American dream. There's a reason they call it a dream.
Who's there?
Cock-a-doodle-doo, pal.
No, 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 no! I don't have any more money! My job sucks right now, please! I'll have more money next month! You can't take my house!
Is that your signature?
It is a private bank owned by private stockholders.
A private bank?
Do not let the name Federal fool you.
If I got this money from the bank, and the bank got it from the Federal Reserve dump trucks, where does the Federal Reserve get their money?
They take our property away, just like Thomas Jefferson said they would.
Those sons of bitches!
It's the greatest theft in human history.
We are back live with our final interview of the evening with Dr. Jerome Corsi. He's an economist, of course, New York Times best-selling author of the Swift Boat book and more. And he wrote, Where is the Birth Certificate? And weeks before it was set to be released, the White House came out and produced a birth certificate that has been proven by many independent outfits, and we've covered that here, to be a childlike hoax. Now they've got a new second edition coming out soon saying, where is the real birth certificate? We're going to talk about that at the end of the interview with Dr. Jerome Corsi. But there's been some frightening developments. You know, Dr. Corsi, when Republicans were in power, wrote about the danger of continuity of government COG and this governor's council that Bush set up and Obama has continued. And now one of the heads of the governor's council in North Carolina, the governor, has come out and said maybe we should suspend elections. And we see Michael Moore saying capitalism is the problem. We see mainstream media having Roseanne Barr on, dressed up like Mao Zedong, saying we need to put people in re-education camps who are wealthy or / cut their heads off. And we're seeing more and more of these calls. We have reporters all over the country interviewing the Occupy Wall Street people. And they're not talking about stopping banker bailouts. They're not talking about going after the crony capitalist. No, they're calling for giant new taxes on the middle class to be paid as banker bailout or austerity money to people like Warren Buffett and George Soros. So because he's written so much about this and predicted so much of it, I want to cover these frightening developments first with Dr. Jerome Corsi and then get into Obama and his latest confirmed crimes with Fast and Furious. Because if they'll ship guns to Mexico and allow Sinaloa to ship cocaine in, the big drug cartel in the north of Mexico, they'd fake a birth certificate, wouldn't they? Dr. Corsi, great to have you here with us tonight.
Great to be back with you. Thanks, Alex.
Well, I just gave a long rundown preface. What do you want to tackle first?
Well, let's start with the call to cancel elections. I mean, I take this very seriously. I think that was a trial balloon. It was the idea of floating, the notion that elections can be called, and before the government does something like that, the government's going to telegraph it. They're going to test out the idea. And I've been writing, if you go back over 2 years, I pointed out that Obama and Odinga, the current prime minister in Kenya, when Obama was there in 2006 campaigning for Odinga, I had their internal documents from their campaign, which called for if Odinga lost the presidential election in December 2007, they were going to cause race riots, which they did. Luo, the Kikuyu race riots. Kikuyu were fighting each other, killing each other. And out of that, Obama and Odinga used the racial violence as a way for Odinga to become prime minister, co-head of state. And it was a position Kofi Annan, the United Nations, Obama was on the phone back and forth from the New Hampshire primary, the various primaries, talking to Odinga. It was completely strategized. So if Obama and Odinga had a dress rehearsal of using race riots in Kenya to get Odinga to be co-head of state, who's to say, put it past Obama from using a similar race riot scenario or other political violence to keep himself in power in 2012?
In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you writing for, was it Human Events, WorldNet Daily at the time, it was like 2.5 years ago. You had the copy of the letterhead from Obama advising Odinga on this, and that was the really first time I heard somebody say, hey, they could use this strategy here in the United States. And now, more and more, they're all over the news. We posted an interview that a reporter did at the Occupy D.C. Wall Street crowd, And they were saying the state has the power. They need to force a takeover. They need to take the rich people's money. And then meanwhile, they're sourcing Warren Buffett and people who are promoting these middle-class tax increases to pay our money in new banker bailouts.